Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com. Once again, talking about design patterns. This time what I want to do is I want to go over the builder design pattern. The idea behind the builder design pattern, it's kind of like taking, so you have factory, where you build objects that create objects, or you create things that'll create other objects, but it'll just create it for you. So you just do one function or one class, it just builds the thing for you. The builder, the idea is that you're trying to create a step-by-step process. So that way, and I think a good way to kind of illustrate this is through the concept of currying functions. So the concept of currying functions is when you create a function that returns a function, and the idea is that the thing that the function inevitably wants to do happens across several functions. So we want to build a house, but instead of building a house with one function, okay, so for example, let's first create a function that's not curried, which would be more of a factory function, and then turn it into a builder function. Okay, so in that case, let's say I do this, const build house, okay, equals, and then we'll say rooms, bathrooms, paint, okay, and then we do this, well, we do arrow function, and what it returns is an object where basically rooms, bathrooms, paint. Pretty straightforward. So it returns you a house. So that many rooms with that many bathrooms and that paint color. Well, maybe you need to get input from someone regarding how many rooms, bathrooms, and paint there is. And this is going to happen across several steps in your program. So in that situation, you can't run this function until you get all these pieces of information. But maybe you'd like to be able to kind of go through this as you go along. So again, this is a factory function. It builds your object for you. So now we're going to break this up into a builder function. So instead of returning this object, rooms, bathrooms, and paint, what we're going to do is return a function. And this is what's referred to as function currying. So I'm going to take the next step. So first step will be the rooms. So then I'm going to take the next step, which is bathrooms, and pass it as a parameter into this new function. Okay, and bathrooms, and all bathrooms is going to do is going to return another function. Okay, and that function takes the next step, which is paint. Okay, and what that function does is then actually return the object with rooms, bathrooms, paint. So let me clean this up. So now you're going through a step-by-step process. So first you run the build house function, which then returns this function. And then this function returns this function, which then returns the rooms. So now this process would kind of go like this. Oh, it's complaining. What's it say? Pretty unexpected token. Come on, let's see here. Build house, rooms, returns, bathrooms, which returns this function. Oh, I see. I think it's getting confused with what the use of those curly brackets are, so I'm going to make this a little bit more implicit. Let's say return, and then add the returns. Oh, and this needs to be return, that's why. Return. I was wondering why it was colored funny. Okay. Return bathrooms, and that should do it. There we go. So there's a piece of code. And again, that's function currying as well. So we're learning two things. What a builder pattern is again, a step-by-step building process. You could also just build a class that has multiple functions that returns a partially built object. And then you pass that object into the next function. And then you pass that object into the next function. But I figured, we'll kill two birds with one stone. You're learning currying and you're learning the builder pattern. So let's say you had like a website that took input from the user. Okay, so first thing the user does is give you input on how many rooms they want in their house. So then what you do is you're going to say, hey, first you do is you're going to build the house. So you'll do like const, house with rooms, or I'm going to say part 2, and that equals the result of build house with the number of rooms that they pass in. So we'll say they said they wanted 2 bedrooms. Okay, so then what that does, it returns this function that takes in bathrooms. So then you're going to say, hey, const part 3 equals part 2, because part 2 is the function that it was returned by build house. And the second function that got returned by build house, part 2, takes in how many bathrooms they want in their house. So we'll say 3 bathrooms, because you can never have enough bathrooms. And then part 3, we'll say const finished house is going to equal the result of the function that this returned, because this returned this function here that's looking for the color of paint to use in the house. So part 3, we'll say green. Okay, so it's going to be a greenhouse with three bathrooms and 2 bedrooms. So then when we do that, we can console log the finished house. And the thing is that the finished house, like, again, one of the benefits of currying is that this function here has access to the variables from this function, which has access to the variables from this function. So even though I'm only passing in paint, it still remembers what bathrooms and rooms are. Okay, so that's the kind of cool thing when you build functions within functions and you return those functions. You can take what's a function that would take like maybe 20 parameters and look like a ridiculous call to the function, break it up into pieces, so that way it's just more easier to work with. You're not creating really crazy lists of arguments. So finished house, and then this basically should return our finished house. So you can take that input at multiple points from the user instead of having to take it all up front and use the function once. And see, there you have your house with 2 rooms, 3 bathrooms, paint green. So the idea behind the builder design pattern is just to break down the creation of the object into multiple steps. Again, you could do it across several functions, a curried function, a class with methods that build the house, whatever. The idea is that you're breaking it up into steps, so that way you can end up with different objects depending on what the information you have in different steps. In this case, how many rooms, how many bathrooms, what color paint. So that's the builder design pattern. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. I'll see you guys later.